World Cargo International, the experts in shipping to the Caribbean, with weekly sailings to Kingston, Jamaica, and fortnightly sailings to Trinidad, Barbados, Dominica, St. Lucia, and more. We can ship almost anything from personal effects to excess baggage to cars and vans and plant machinery. We can even supply containers and barrels direct to your home address. And collection is simple too. We simply come to you. World Cargo International, taking the hassle out of shipping. Pop in and see us at 55A Princess Street, Luton, LU1 580. Call us on 01582 733 711 or see us online at worldcargoint.com.
Hi, a very good afternoon to you all, our listeners out there. And for those who are joining us on our www.pamtengo.com, we are also streaming live on our Facebook page, our YouTube page, and also our Twitter page. So this is another episode of Empower Hour. Welcome, everybody, and I trust everybody is well and safe wherever you are. So this afternoon, I'm going to be joined by three ladies from the Bedfordshire Police. They have different roles in the police, and they're going to be talking to us today about women in color in the policing. This is going to be exciting. So I will just bring them on into the studio, and then they will introduce themselves to us. Um, First of all, I am going to bring on Sandra. Hi, Sandra. How are you doing?
Hi, good afternoon, Lady Munya. What other job would you be in listening to this fantastic music? Thank you very much for inviting us. Very colourful so far. So happy International Women's Day from our women of colour in policing to all.
Thank you, Sandra. Let me bring on Sam. She's waiting to come in as well. Hi, Sam. Hello, Sam. Can you hear me? Okay, I think Sam cannot hear us at the moment. So, what we're going to do, Sandra, is maybe if we start with yourselves. Oh, hang on a second. Julie's just popped in as well in the studio. Let me see if we can bring on Julie and then we can say hello to her. Hi, Julie. Hello, Julie. Can you hear us? Okay, so Julie and Sam seem to be having trouble connecting. What I'm going to do is ask them to come out the studio and try and join again. And while I speak to Sandra, who is on with me at the moment. So, Sandra, tell us a bit about yourself, a little bit about your personal self, and then if you can go into your role in the policing and what that entails.
Thank you, Lady Munya. Often, as a police officer, we don't get asked about our private life because it's like working for the SAS. We're quite secretive. So thank you very much for asking a bit about me. So I've been in policing for 5 years, but believe it or not, I wanted to be a police officer many years ago, and I won't tell you what decade because you'll start adding up the years. So I wanted to come to policing, but my mum didn't want me to because like any kind of Caribbean mother, they're quite fearful of policing and she didn't want me to join. So I fell into retail fashion manager, and I grew up in that industry and became a manager and worked across the UK and Ireland, and that was my 30-year career. When I came back to the UK, I wanted to join policing. It was still in my blood, and it was something I wanted to do, and I wanted to bring about that change. So I joined Hertfordshire Police as a community officer. I joined like everybody else does because I wanted to make a difference. But before I knew it, I was working with diversity. I worked in Watford, we didn't have a diverse workforce, but we had a diverse community. And I just took on that role as championing diversity. And that became my world. I recently transferred to Bedfordshire Police, and I work as Positive Action Strategic Lead, and that's what I'm currently doing at the moment. And that's how I met you, Lady Munya. So
Yes,
Positive Action.
I've met you a few weeks ago when you've come down to Luton, and I'm very pleased to have met you. To be honest, I was going to ask for you to continue and explain what your position means in policing and out there for the community.
Positive action is about giving everybody a level playing field, because whether you're black, white, whatever your colour is, we're all at different stages in our lives. We're all different. So positive action is about giving people from ethnic minority background, whether it be black or Asian, whether you have a disability, whether dependent on your sexuality, we support you through the process. So if you're joining policing and you need support in getting through the process, then we do that. But positive action is not all about recruitment. Positive action is also about the culture within policing, because what we don't want to do is, say, bring our black community in, and then they come in and the culture doesn't support them as a black student or a black officer or an Asian officer, like I say, black, Asian, ethnic minorities. So we make sure that my job is to make sure that we educate the workforce so we understand what difference looks like, and also to recognise why we need to bring in that difference. We have to represent the community that we're serving, and that's part of the issue at the moment in policing, that we're not representative. But I know there is an issue at the moment in terms of bringing our black communities along with us, and that's why it's important to connect with people like you and to be on the radio talking about what we want to achieve as within policing.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me try and see. I think Sam is joined back again. Let me try and see if we can add her on, and if we can hear her now. Hello, Sam. No, I think she's still having trouble with her connection. It's probably the internet connection where she is, because I can see the little circle still going round and round in not connecting. But anyway, it looks like it's just gonna be you and me today, Sandra.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not sure how else we can get them to be here. Oh, Julie is here. So let's see if I can add Julie and get to the topic here.
Ah, brilliant. I don't feel alone now.
Yeah. Well, you had me. Come on.
Hello.
Hi, Julie. How are you?
I'm so sorry. I've been on my laptop and it wasn't working, so I'm on my iPhone now, which seems to work perfectly well.
Probably Sam needs to do the same thing. Maybe try and connect from her phone as well.
Yeah, I've just messaged her.
The laptops, they're doing their own thing, and you're trying to do something else. But anyway, welcome, Julie, and I'm glad you've managed to join us. So we were just talking with Sandra. She's just been telling her about herself and her job role in policing within the community, what it means and what it entails for our community out there. If you just want to introduce yourself and then maybe tell us a little bit about your role as well in policing.
Sure, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me on. It's a real privilege to be here today. My name's Julie Henderson, and I lead people and workforce development for Bedfordshire Police. So my responsibility ranges from recruitment and attraction, right through to training, progression, promotion, lateral opportunities, diversity and inclusion, all of those. I guess you could describe me as a chief of staff.
All right. So in overall, you are the one who is taking care of everything and making sure that things are running the way they should, isn't it?
That's it. All the difficult challenges come my way, and trying to keep things going in a positive way. Yeah.
I can imagine. Anyway, we'll talk about your challenges shortly. Let's see if Sam has managed. Let's find out. I can see her face in the back studio, so let's just add her in and say hello to her. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Lady Munya. How are you?
How are you? We're so pleased you could join us. I think you've had to use your phone as well, isn't it?
Yes, it wouldn't let us in. I'm not sure why, because we heard the music, but it just wouldn't allow us in. But we're here now.
Oh yes, we could see you that you were there in the studio, but then it was just not connecting for some reason. I have no idea why. I think it's some of the things with all this pandemic and new technologies have all come into place, and we're still learning the curves of how to manage each and every app and Zoom meetings and whatever that they've come up with. But anyway, I'm glad we've managed. So, Sam, if you can tell us your role, your position, and what it entails.
Hello, and thank you for having us on, Lady Munya. So I'm Sam Alexander. I'm a fingerprint expert within the police. I have been in policing for over 20 years now, joining at the Met. My current role is a positive action lead in Joint Protective Services. And that involves reaching out to communities, working with our staff internally to excel into roles in specialist policing, which includes armed policing, roads policing, counter-terrorism, and such the like. And I've been doing that role since the pandemic hit because I had to work from home. But prior to that, I was in forensic services, and my background is in forensic psychiatry.
All right, interesting. What I'm liking today is that I have a group of women from the police. Right. And in our community, the only way we understand a police person is when you see them out there arresting people and, just walking up and down, keeping the law and order. But today, I have you ladies, and you are telling us a bit more about how you can be in the police force, but then you have different roles in policing. So I'm really really liking this is how we are giving out this information to our public out there, our community, and including myself, not trying to be funny or anything. I've always seen the police as the one that come and arrest you, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's why we're
The
here.
rose, it's never been something that I really had to sit down and think, oh, but who's that person who answers the phone when you ring the police? Which is, I think, out there in the community, a lot of our young people, when you tell them about the police and when you ask them to join the police, this is the first thing they think about. So if I can ask Sandra, if you can give us a bit of know how are we going to encourage the young people out there, especially the ones that look like us, to join the police force?
Lady Munya, I think we discussed it before, that it's conversations like this in this forum. A lot of kind of conversations and the recruitment that we've done in previous years has been face to face. That's not how our young people engage anymore. They use social media, they use the radio, whatever tech they want to use. So we have to be innovative in how we're connecting with those communities now. We also have to be real. If we're going to our young ones and saying that, come on board, come into policing, it's the best job ever, and they can look at what's happening in the news or on social media, they can see that I'm not being truthful. So I think before we do anything,
telling a real totally different story, isn't it?
Yes, so we have to be honest, and I talk about this to Sam, and I've spoken to the boss on many occasions, that we have to be authentic and we have to be real in how we're engaging our young people. The roller coaster ride into policing is not always straightforward, but we've got to understand, in order to make a change as a Black person, we have to come to the table and be that change. And that's why myself and Sam, we're sitting here today talking about policing, not from a negative point of view, but from a positive point of view, because we're on a journey of bringing about that change.
Thank you, Sandra. And Sam, well, what would you add to what Sandra's just said? How would you use your role to encourage or inspire some young Black people out there or women of color to join the police?
Well, I would say, as my father would say, if you want change, you have to be a part of that change. And that has stuck with me from a young woman growing right up, and I pass that on to my children. It's very easy for us to complain, and our complaint has substance. But the question is, what next? And we're very much about the what next. Are we going into those positions to effect change? Are we going into schools to be on our governing bodies? Are we going into councils to be on the council oversight boards? And this is why we welcome, our IAGs, which are our independent advisory boards, and our community scrutiny panels, to make sure that we are keeping a light to what we do. And I'd say to young people who think that the police are an organisation to be feared, we can't deny what's in the public eye at the moment. We can't deny the temperature of what's happening, but we can change. There's many areas in which you can support that change in roles within policing. We are underrepresented in police specialised roles, as I mentioned before, the roles that we do hold. And we really need that change. We need women to come forward. We need young girls to see policing as a career of choice and not an afterthought. Our positive action teams are going out to football clubs and saying, if you don't make it, as a footballer of your career of choice, number one, have policing as a backup plan to change that narrative, moving away from, the archetype of what the police, in old times stood for, or some believed it did. But let's look about change. How can we change the narrative? And women of colour in policing, that is our movement around speaking to young women, young girls, getting involved and making that change. And I, as one, have been, for a long time, just one in fingerprints and forensics, the only Black woman in some areas. But that hasn't deterred me to want to bring along change. And we do that every day. I went to a COVID centre not long ago, and they were doing fantastic work. And it reminded me they could take up positions in our labs. They could be leading, in those areas. And I encouraged them, gave them the website, and some joined up. So it's as easy as that, how we can effect change.
Yeah, absolutely right, Sam. You saying that you can only be the first person to make change if you want change. Because I see that a lot of us want change, but all we do is just sit in the back seat and complain and talk about it and just shout off the rooftops about everything. Oh, this is wrong and that is wrong, but then doing absolutely nothing about it. So yeah, you are very right that we need to start making the change, and that change is going to start with us. It's us who are going to be the ones who can make that happen. And speaking about International Women's Day, we're celebrating this year. The theme is breaking the bias, and it's not only about women of color; it's about all women. All women, we are in positions that we we had to fight, I mean, to get where we are today. In from many years ago in the past, we've just had to be fighting for women rights and fighting for that seat at the table with the big boys, as they say. So I'm happy to see that, Julie, you are the chief. Uh, um, Yes, and you are sitting there top, representing us women. So this is what some other things that I'd like bringing people like you on radio, and then we can show our young people out there that even you can be in a position like this. So I will extend the same question to you, Julie, as well. How is it that you are using your role to encourage our young people, our young women, to want to thrive and be in a position of where you are now, and let alone be in a position to say, I want to be a policewoman.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I think it's really important for us to encourage all of our young women to achieve whatever it is that their ambitions dictate. There should be no barrier at all to whatever it is that they dream of, whatever they want to achieve. There's no reason why they can't reach, for the stars, every single one of them. And we are all really, really crucial to their success, because it's up to us to lift them up, and reach down that hand. We've made great success of wherever we are in our career and whatever we've done, and it's now our responsibility to reach down and lift people up behind us, and not remove that ladder, but actually help them up the ladder too. And I won't rest until we've got good representation in this force. Across females, which is currently, I think, just below 40% representation, which is pretty good actually for policing. When I first joined policing, it was woeful. It was probably
a man's job, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably in the low teens percentage for women. But also black women in policing is really, it's an area that we really need to do better in. We need better representation from minority communities across the board. And Sandra's doing some terrific work in that area. And we just want to, I guess, reach out and make sure that people know it is a career of choice. And it can be an amazing career. I've traveled the world in this career and done some amazing things, but fundamentally it's not about just arresting people, it's about justice. And if you believe in justice, then policing is a great career to be in, and treating people well and making sure that people get justice, whatever has happened to them. And it gives you the opportunity to be that person who stands up and says, that's not right, and I'm going to do something about that.
Absolutely right. I couldn't have put it any better than that. Right. So we've covered that bit about what you ladies are bringing as in your roles to encourage that young woman out there who's thinking, oh, maybe I can become a policewoman. With the pandemic, a lot has been out of place. Our jobs, we've had to do a lot of changes. We've had to work from home because of the lockdown, especially the first lockdown. Everything was completely shut down, and we've had to put into place different ways how we can continue to offer the services out there. And I can imagine from your point of view, being a policewoman, how and what challenges did you face? How did you manage to work during the pandemic without having to be in the office or in a place where you're supposed to be? How challenging was that? I'll start with you, Julie.
I think we've had to adapt like everybody. That some areas of business we could conduct away from the office, but some areas, we had to carry on. Lots of our frontline colleagues answering 999 calls and helping people in their hour of greatest need, which is what we do. We're there when things are really not good, and we're there to help people pick up the pieces and find a way forward. That carried on throughout the pandemic or not. People still have crises every day. So hats off to our amazing frontline colleagues that were there day in, day out. And people like Sam and Sandra, they've had to adapt their operating to a new environment and have done tremendously well, keeping that momentum going in terms of outreach and community engagement and just finding different ways to reach the public. So I'll pass over to the other two because I'm talking far too much.
Not at all. I think I'd just like to say something, that we need to remember that we lost colleagues along the way throughout this pandemic. And, sometimes the public doesn't see that we're actually human. I lost my mom in 2020 as well through the pandemic. And I was front line at the time, and you still have to go out and do the job. No matter how down you're feeling, the job still goes on. We still need to protect our community. So for me, it was tough. It was really tough, because you're trying to cope with the grief, but you're also trying to offer that service as well. And I think on the other side of it, you have to learn how to do things differently. A lot of the stuff we did over that time, for me, in the job was online. It's not personal. You're trying to adapt to that way of working, but also to make sure that the engagement continues, because, just because the pandemic is here doesn't mean that policing stops. That world still goes on. We still need to recruit. We still need to fight crime. So we've just had to find different ways of really engaging.
Absolutely right. I mean, you are a part of the group of the key workers, like the NHS, yourselves, the police, the fire brigade. I don't think a lot changed for yourselves. You were just left alone to carry on. As for some of us, we could stay at home and work from home, but for yourselves, it was a different story altogether. You just had to carry on doing your work.
Yeah,
So,
so the workforce, Gold Command, they consider the workforce and they look at those who are extremely vulnerable, clinically vulnerable. We do have, a percentage of people like myself who are vulnerable, but we're still very effective within policing. And that's where we talk about intersectionality, our disabled workforce, the staff who live with long-term conditions. So they also had to be protected in the face of this pandemic. And we just managed to adapt. There was a lot of agile working, working from home, being able to even adapt environments with workplace adjustments, which were considered within the home, so home to office, and making sure those risk assessments were done. My husband's a frontline police officer, so he was at work all the time throughout the pandemic, working on the murder team. And the challenge is real. And we do interagency working with fire and ambulance. And they, as you know, were outside facing a real onslaught of the horribleness of COVID. But it was a challenge. It is a challenge still, but there's been great adaptations from above in the chief officer positions for all staff, and to make sure that our well-being is taken care of as well. There's a well-being, the impact of the pandemic on mental well-being and stability and home life. We can't forget the challenge of that too.
absolutely right. So the things that you adapted during the pandemic, now that, as I mentioned earlier on, the restrictions are starting to ease off, people are now being encouraged to go back to work. I'm sure there's systems that you put in place that you will be maybe helping people online or on the phone, instead of face to face like you used to do before the pandemic. Is this something that's going to be carried on, or is it going to be phased out completely? How are you going to start the new ways of working post the pandemic?
So if I take that one, I think some of the new adaptations we'll keep, and some of them that we will slowly phase out and go back to how things were before. For example, one of the jobs that we do in policing, which people often forget about, is that we manage sex offenders in the community.
Yeah.
So when someone's been convicted of a sex offence, they're often put on the sex offenders register, and it's up to us to maintain visits, for example, and make sure that they're adhering to their various conditions. And that was really, really difficult to manage during the pandemic. So we adapted.
You can't do that online, can you? You have to do it physically.
Exactly. Yeah, so we adapted a piece of technology actually to allow us to do the lower level, because we grade them high, medium, and low. And so we were able to adapt and use some technology that allowed us to make sure we knew that the person was where they were supposed to be, because of course living is part of their condition, residence. So that kind of technology has really helped us. And actually, I would say the pandemic, it's accelerated our embracing new technologies, and it's helped us to move forward a lot quicker than we would ordinarily have moved forward, because public sector generally can be
It
quite
has,
slow.
yeah, I can say it has done that for a lot of people. I mean, most of us have always held on to our old ways of working and old ways of doing things. But it really gave us that boost to say you really need to change these ways, or you just have to shut shop.
Yeah. And one of my favorite phrases is, necessity is the mother of all invention. And we had an enormous amount of necessity to do things differently. And so we accelerated our invention and our different ways of thinking. And actually, I think a lot of it's been quite positive. And I don't know if Sandra and Sam would agree, but I think it's accelerated. We've embraced teams and, things that we would not have embraced in the way that we have. And so there's been a lot of positives as well, I think.
I think I spent a long time running away from social media, especially Teams. It was Skype at the time and Teams, and then all of a sudden you were having to learn new skills, and now it's just you're so used to that way of working that,
Yeah.
and not only that, you can capture such a big audience by using Teams. We had an event for International Women's Day, and we got 200 plus people on that platform. Now, if we did that face to face, I wonder how many guests we would have received.
Yeah, it's a great example.
I think it did cut down the traveling, and a lot of people found it easier to be hosting programs and events online rather than having events in person. They even had a good turnout online instead of people turning up face to face. I know a group of women that we actually got to write 2 books during the lockdown with these women, because a lot of them were so isolated, and the only way we could keep communicating was through Zoom. So one of our lead, her name is Dee Bailey. I don't know if you've heard about her. I'm sure you might have had a bit from her in the community moving around. So she, the one who suggested that why don't we meet up every week on a Thursday for a few hours and just chat and talk about just catching up, how you're getting on, how you're feeling, what everybody was going through. So it was a group of us, 22 women. So all we did every week is meet on these Zoom meetings. And from that, we decided we were going to write a book about our experiences, what we're going through lockdown. That was our first book. And yeah, I think that was the challenging bit was that if you lived on your own and you had nobody else, who would you talk to?
Yeah. But I think also as well, it's been liberating as well for some working practices in that it's okay now if you've got the kids at home and they interrupt you whilst you're on a meeting, or the dog's jumping on your knee, or
Yes.
things that we would normally never accept, would we? And
You wouldn't have that in the office, no.
yeah, and now we're thinking, actually, do you know what? That's okay. It's okay to have those distractions and that life outside work, and we can still get on with doing what we need to do, and it's not an interference. And actually, from a female perspective, that's really good news, I think.
Yes.
To say, it's okay, to have distractions and outside, and people perhaps become more sympathetic to what's going on in your private life as well, because they can see that you're juggling, and lots of women do juggle, as we all know, lots of things, lots of balls in the air at the same time, as well as keeping a full-time job going.
Yes, very true. Especially for women, we had to take on even more extra added to what the things that we were doing, like schooling. I mean, we because most of us became teachers overnight, which I can imagine. I'm glad I didn't have any young one who was still in school. My boys are all grown up now, so I was really spared from the role of becoming a teacher. Yes.
Unfortunately, I wasn't.
Sorry, say that again, Sam. I didn't get what you said, Sam. Can you say that again?
I said, unfortunately, I wasn't spared. I had a
Oh,
pre-GCSE young person preparing for this year. So it was a lot, and I felt sorry for the young people at that stage as well, because the unknown, you know, what they were facing. They were doing exams, and even this year, so the restrictions are lifted, they're still dealing with the impact, you know, of missing a lot of their education. But certainly there were some challenging days.
I can only imagine what you had to go through, because I don't know, I would have just lost it. But anyway, with the movement that you've started, Sandra, women in policing, women of color in policing, are you looking at okay, let me say, what projects are you looking at for this year? What have you got planned?
Okay, so women of colour in policing started off with one woman's story, and from there we put out a call for action for women of colour to step forward and tell their stories.
Yes.
And before we knew it, so many women have stepped forward, not just from Bedfordshire or Hertfordshire, Cambridgeshire, but farther afield, as far as Scotland. And why women are stepping forward is they don't want to feel that they're alone. You have some police forces that are not as diverse, and they want to feel that there's other women of colour around them. So we're now calling WOSIP a movement. It's a movement to engage women of colour, not just in policing, but externally as well, women like yourself that are pro-police. It doesn't matter whether you're in policing, whether you're in rank, you could be the cleaner, you could be whoever. We are engaging you to step forward and support the movement. We said in 2020, after George Floyd, that was such a year to move things forward. I feel as if for 2020, 2021, we kind of missed that window. 2022 is the year that the National Police Association are shining a light on women and race. So this is our moment. This is our time to kind of shine and to speak out. Myself and Sam, we often have these conversations around, you know, as Black women, do you see us? And if you see us, what do you see? And that's kind of the conversations that we've been having. And again, if I go back to International Women's Day, we called it Women of Colour's International Women's Day. And if you look at the platform of over 200 guests, not just women of colour, but allies as well, I think that speaks for itself, that this is a movement and we're on our journey. We're on our journey because we want women to feel that they have support and that we are working in unity and we're educating the organisation. And I know Sam has got something to add to that. And I know Julie is an ally who will also have something to add.
Oh, yes, please go ahead. And I think I've got something to add as well. I must have said it earlier on, and I'll say it again, that it's seeing you coming on this platform and talking to the community out there and saying this is what we're doing. That is more than something to encourage another young Black woman out there, another young woman of color, or even any young woman out there to say that, hey, why can't I be like those women? I want to be like that as well when I grow up.
If I can just say, Lady Munya, when I started out on my journey when I left school, I was told by my careers teacher that I would, she asked me what I wanted to do, and I said I wanted to join the Air Force. And she said, no, you need to go off and apply to some news agents and go and get a job in a news agent. And I knew from that moment that I had to make a stand and be brave in terms of what I wanted to do. And I wanted to join the Air Force. I mean, I passed my exam to get in, but unfortunately failed my medical. And then I wanted to join policing. But what I'm trying to show the young ladies of colour is that anything's possible. You just have to be brave enough to step forward and know your worth.
Well, I can imagine if that lady can see you today, what would what would she say? You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
it's people like that that just give us the wrong impression for our children as well. I think we need more women out there that they support your dreams, and they encourage you when you say you want to do something. Give that positive positive advice, not just brush you away, and they give you an opinion of what they think you should be.
Yeah, and who are they to judge anyway?
Exactly.
Yeah.
None of us are here to judge anybody. That's not our job. We should be looking to, try and develop and coach and help these young people from all walks of life, but especially from groups that are underrepresented, that don't have access to the privileges that we've had access to, and certainly me particularly have had access to, being a white woman. And to make sure that I recognise that and open those doors for people, and
Yes.
not only open the door but help them to see the door in the first place, and say you can work here, you can do that, you can be that. Why not? What's stopping you? And let me help you break down whatever it is barrier that you've got, because there's nothing in this world that a woman cannot achieve if she wants to. We are forces of nature,
Yes.
and we can put our minds to anything. And there have been some great women that have gone before us, and it's our responsibility. I see it very much as my responsibility to make sure that I encourage people, all people, but especially women, to achieve the things that they want to achieve. And part of that is what Sandra said, is that believing that they can, because a lot of it with women is they'll only go for a job if they tick 8 out of 10 of the objectives, but men will go for it if they only tick 1 or 2. So how do we build that confidence in women to say, you're just as good as anyone else, so go for it, and give them the courage of that to go forward. But yeah, it's a brilliant career in policing, and it's wholly recommended from my perspective, and Sandra and Sam as well. Real diversity of opportunity, lots of things that you can do in policing, and also right now we're offering the degree apprenticeship. So if someone is listening and they're from a background where they don't think that they could afford to go to university, we do offer that support so that they can get a degree. And my personal background is I was never in a position to go to university when I was a kid. It was just never on the radar for me. And so policing really took me and gave me some opportunities that I wouldn't have had in other careers, and I'm very grateful for that. And a person like me can achieve anything in this job, if you've got the right drive and determination. And we can take someone from school age, and we'll help them to achieve a degree and get a really fulfilling career where you can genuinely every day make a positive difference to people's lives, and make that just make people feel better about what their immediate environment. So it's a fantastic career.
Yeah. If you could maybe at the end of the program, if you can email me the details of this apprenticeship, then we can put it out there for
Yep.
our community as well. If ever anybody is interested, they know where to go, and where to get help in situations like you say. University these days is not cheap, is it?
No.
And only a few people, a lot of our children want to go to the university, but then it's a struggle with everything going up. It's just some families would just say that they wouldn't be able to afford to do that. So that would be great if we could have that information just to share it out there. And Sam, before you disappeared, Sandra was we was talking about um, you adding on to her comments, and I don't know what happened. Is it your network still giving
I
trouble?
think, yeah, I think the network is, I'm not sure even if I'm giving you some interference, so I do apologise.
That's okay.
But around what we're doing is that the programs that we're doing in terms of women of colour in policing, and what we're doing within the organisation. We've got a further you program that helps to develop women who are already within policing, maximise their potential, so that they can have lateral progression as well as, going to those places where we have underrepresentation. And it's a mentoring scheme, so they're supported by senior officers in rank and role, and this is also for staff. We also have a programme called Becoming Career Ready, which is focused solely on women of colour within the police force. It's a pilot study at the moment. We've been inundated with women who would like to be involved within that, within Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire and Cambridgeshire, as we're a Triforce, but also from our specialist policings and Eastern region. So, the focus is in developing women, hearing their voices, ensuring that they are not only seen, but that they can make that difference if they feel stuck within their role, if they've been in a role and they think they would like to go for something different but aren't quite sure how they go about it. So Women of Colour in Policing is supporting that, and we've been involved from the very start of and the inception of the programme. But what I'd like to say alongside what Mom was saying as well is around policing being a career of choice. The narrative is, the community and how we work, the two don't go together. But it's very much different. We have to acknowledge that there are some difficult roles, and there's been some difficult stories that have come out, but this is about development in women into roles that are specialised, into policing that can be effective in your communities, engaging with harder to reach communities, whatever that is, black or white, and women can play a pivotal role in that. Michelle Obama once said, a country or a nation without women at the core of what they do is a nation that's inept. And we want to ensure that women are seen and heard, particularly within police. And I stand on the shoulders of my mother, who wasn't in the police force, wasn't educated at university, but she had a lot to give to children in care. She fostered so many children and helped with adoption. And I stand on her shoulders, and I stand on the shoulders of Cicely Faye Allen, the first black female within policing in the UK, who joined the Met, and Sandra, the first Asian Sikh woman who joined policing. And we stand together and hold hands to make a difference. That's what policing is about. So we need our young women of all colours, but particularly where we're facing that challenge of diversity, to see it as a career of choice.
Thank you, Sam. We are going to be holding a series of events during the course of the year, since the lockdown is now finished. So we are looking at holding quite a few events. I will be letting you know about the events, and we would love to see you at those events, as we are going to have a lot of young women out there, even young men as well. And it would be nice just to see Bedfordshire Police, you stand there recruiting and, just giving out information to the young people who may be interested in joining the police. So yes, I will send you the details, Sandra.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think we've covered pretty much what we was what we had put in our list of what to talk about. The last thing I would just want to ask is your project going to be working of it's a silly question what I want to ask. Which other organizations, that's the correct, which other organization are you going to be partnering with to work with your projects, like the Women of Color in Policing?
Okay, so we called it an initiative, we called it a program, we called it everything. And what we said is that you can call it anything you want to call it, so long as there's action. So this is a call for action. So we are going to call it a movement, because that's what it is. That movement is gathering momentum. And like I explained to you before, we've been approached onto a national platform to kind of talk about it a little bit more, and to see whether or not we can get it on nationally. But we're engaging not only different police forces, but we're also engaging people from the community like you, because we want to understand your struggles, because your struggles is our struggles. Yes. We want to understand your struggles, and obviously Black female in your business, sometimes we're seen as the unsung heroes. We're doing all this work behind the scenes, but nobody sees what you're doing. So we're trying to engage people like you to step forward and support us, because you're in the community. You've got the language amongst your community, your youth, to change how they view policing. We're always going to see what we see in the press or in the media. And we can sit on the sidelines and continue to listen to the news and continue to read the newspapers. But we have to start stepping up. We have to start stepping up to be that difference.
Yes.
So I'm going to bring you along with me, Lady Munya. You're going to bring somebody else. That person's going to bring that person. And this is how the movement progresses. And this is how, as a group of women, we bring about that change. Not only us as women of colour, but our allies, like, you know, like Julie, like whoever else is involved in what we're doing. This is how a movement starts. This is how you bring about change. I remind you that I'm a police constable. Sam is a member of staff in her role. Not that I'm trying to demean what Sam does. We do what we do because we want to bring that change. We didn't join policing to talk about colour all day long, but we realise that it's firmly on the agenda. And unless we start to put those actions in place, we're going to be sitting here another 12 months' time talking about the same thing, talking about we can't get black people into policing. They are the hard to reach communities. They're not hard to reach. They just want a face-to-face conversation about how we as the police force are going to change what we're doing, change our culture, change the way we work, change the way we reach out. And that's me on my soapbox. For me, before I hand over to Sam, I'm saying to the women of colour, but all people of colour, be brave, step forward, be that change. We see you and we hear you.
Thank you, Sandra. I would just say that the first time I met you, I think we had said, "Oh, I only have a few minutes to just say hello and introduce." That you ended up sitting and talking at length about such matters for I think close after an hour. We just sat there and talked about these things, and I really loved our conversation from from the first time that I saw you. So for me, it's for every woman, to be honest. Instead of just standing and not doing something, we all need to step out there and do the best we can at our level best and encourage other women as well, the ones that need guidance. There is a lot of women out there who have no idea who to turn to, where to turn to, or what to do. So it is everybody's responsibility to guide them, mentor them, and show them the way, and just bring out the light in everybody as we go along. Sam, I'll
Absolutely.
pass it to you now.
Yes, and you asked about what agencies and you know, organisations, and you know, within policing we've got the cadets, we've got the volunteers. I would encourage young people to get involved in our volunteers and our intern schemes. You know, get involved in our cadets and see what policing is about. You're the ones who are going to go out and change that narrative among your peers, you know, on TikTok and different social media platforms. You know, the language of young people is really powerful. And so when
It
they can
is.
see what change looks like, they can help us make that change. You know, we speak about just from doing the Women of Colour in Policing event on our platform, our allies were of all colours. And even though they may not have been of a particular colour, the voice was one collective that we need change. And that voice is, how can I help? You know, how can I help bring that change? How can I help elevate this movement? And that was indicative about the number of women who stayed online after the event. You know, the guests who stayed on to say, you know, what can we do in our communities? What can we do in our workforces? We had people who joined the platform from schools. We had people who joined the platform, you know, social media influencers who were willing to champion this cause. So we can raise our voices far and wide. It's in our action. We sit here today not about the discussion, but about the action in implementing what women of colour into policing, but other areas that support policing as well, social services, all of those areas that make a real change. When someone comes into custody, for instance, we don't want them to leave, that experience without support. What can we put in so that they don't have that revolving door experience, stay away from trouble? That's how we want to look at how effective policing is as well.
Wonderful. And Julie?
Yeah, just leading on from that, Sam, the sign of a successful police force is not arresting people and sending people to prison. It's actually the absence of crime. So we are successful when people feel safe, and when they live in an area they feel safe in. And that's not about arresting baddies. That's about prevention and working with the community and ensuring that you can walk around your local area in the knowledge that you are safe. And that's our number one objective. And so if you want to get involved in that, then the police as a career is a great place to be, because you can be part of that solution of making sure that there is an absence of crime and a wealth of people feeling safe and content in their local environment.
Oh, thank you very much.
Lady Munya, you've given us such a wonderful platform to speak on this. And I want to really encourage that person who might be afraid or who might come from a community that doesn't, agree with joining the police force, and that we will support anyone who wants to join the police force, and we will support them within their communities as well. And just to really try and think about all of the ways in which you can come into policing, and think of being a specialist in certain areas as well.
Yes, like Sandra said, bringing up these conversations is where we've got to start. Let's talk about it. And I think next week I'll be having someone from from the police to talk about domestic abuse.
Okay.
Yes. So this is another career role as well. You can go into being a police. It doesn't necessarily mean you're arresting people all the time. So
No.
I think we need to keep talking about these roles and putting it out there to the community for those who are thinking, oh no, I don't want to be going around arresting people. There is other roles that you can take up. There is other positions. There is other exciting things that you can do within the police. It's not just about arresting people. Lastly but not least, if people want to get in touch and know more about your movement, I was going to call it a project again, but you've said we we can call it whatever we want to call it.
Lady Munya, we'll email you the details in terms of if they want to apply for a job. We'll send you the link for that, both from Bedfordshire Police and Joint Protective Services. And then also if they want to connect with us in terms of women of colour, we do have an email address for that now. So I'll send that to you as well.
Fantastic. Once I have that, then I'll be sharing it all on our platforms. And every woman out there is more than welcome to join the movement. We need everybody to come and pitch in their ideas how best we can encourage, especially our young ones. I mean, we're not going to be here forever, so it's a legacy that you, Sandra and Sam and Julie, you've started something really big. And I promise you, it's not just going to be in policing alone. It's just going to spread like wildfire to all other organizations across the world, which is absolutely going to be mind blowing and amazing. So, with that, I don't know if you ladies have any last words you want to leave our listeners with before we say our goodbyes. If I can start with you, Julie.
Just thank you very much for allowing us this platform today, and I'd just like to champion Sandra and Sam, who are doing amazing work here, amazing women in policing, trailblazing, phenomenal ladies, and I promise you and all our listeners that there is a really, really good, interesting, worthwhile career in policing that we would love to see more women in and more women of colour in. So I'd really encourage people to consider that. But thank you.
You're welcome. And Sam?
Yes, Lady Munya, thank you so much. Blessings on you, and thank you for the opportunity. I say each one reaches one, and it's my role to make sure that the position in policing is a real authentic one. We make that conversation live, we keep our action going. And I just want to thank our chief officers, for Bedfordshire and Joint Protective Services, and Mom, who has been supportive, our senior sponsor for WOSIP. Most of all, I'd just like to say to people out there who might be listening, who might be thinking, what can I do next? This is a career of choice. And anyone who knows Sandra and I would know, if it wasn't working, we would have gone. You can really make a difference. So please
you don't seem like the kind of women who stick around for.
And I want to emphasize that I'm a woman who became disabled within my career, and I've still been able to elevate. So anything is possible.
No disability is a
It's not a barrier.
No disability is an inability.
That's right.
So yes, thank you very much, Sam, for that.
Thank
and
you.
Lastly, Sandra.
I think to just remind ourselves that we are phenomenal women in our own right. I'd like to thank the organisation, Bedfordshire Police, because they've given us the autonomy to just be on this journey of bringing about change. And then just to remember, this is a call for action. This is a movement. We have to move forward. We need to stop talking. We need to get the action in place and crack on with it.
Wow, thank you very much, ladies. It's just, I think we can go on and on and on about all these things, but I would really love maybe mid-year going forward, we could bring you back again and then just catch up on how you're getting along with the movement, and just also remind people out there that we are still looking to have a lot more women of color in policing, and it's an ongoing thing. It's not just a one-day thing that we're looking for. We're looking for this to be going on and on and on and on forever years to come. So with that, thank you, Sandra, Sam, and
Thank
Julie.
you.
And
Thank you.
thank you to all our listeners out there, those who've been watching us on Facebook and also on our YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. We don't take this for granted. I'll be posting all the information, details that you may need if you're looking into going to policing, which direction you can take, which phone number or website you can visit to do that. And with that, from our studios here in Luton, Pamtengo Radio, I say stay blessed and stay safe. Until next time, we're out.
Thank you.
Step 1. Use our warehouse as a forwarding address at checkout. Step 2. Delivery to our warehouse and we will check your goods. Step 3. We deliver worldwide, handle customs, notify you of your cost and prepare your package for delivery to your door. Contact us today on 44 784 25 362 or 44 744 6705 955, or alternatively send an email to info@worldcargoint.com. World Cargo International, where no item is too big.